How does a nation built on sinking land, shaped by unpredictable rivers, and threatened by rising oceans, continue to survive, to grow, and to dream? This is the story of Bangladesh, a country where water is both the greatest blessing and the most relentless adversary, where 170 million souls live on a delta that shifts beneath their feet, where resilience is not a choice, but a way of life passed down through generations. A place where rivers carry the memories of ancient civilizations, where the world's largest mangrove forest stands guard against the fury of cyclones, and where humanity has learned to dance with disaster rather than flee from it. So, if you're not in a hurry, take a moment, stay with us, and discover how a nation learns to breathe underwater while reaching for the sky. Credibility Punch. Bangladesh, a country smaller than the state of Iowa, holds within its borders more people than Russia, the largest nation on Earth. With over 170 million inhabitants packed into just 147,570 square kilometers, it stands as one of the most densely populated countries in human history. More than 1,200 people share every square kilometer of land, a number that seems almost impossible until you witness the vibrant chaos of its cities and the crowded boats navigating its countless waterways. Yet what makes Bangladesh truly extraordinary is not its population density, but its geography. Approximately 80% of the country lies on a floodplain, the vast delta formed by three of Asia's mightiest rivers, the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and the Meghna, creates a landscape that is as fertile as it is fragile. Every year, monsoon rains swell these rivers to bursting. Every year, millions of hectares disappear beneath churning waters. And every year, the people of Bangladesh rebuild, replant, and carry on, as if defiance itself were woven into their genetic code. Scientists estimate that by 2050, rising sea levels could displace more than 17 million entire districts could vanish beneath the waves. And yet, here in this land of perpetual uncertainty, life does not merely continue. It flourishes with an intensity that defies all logic. Atmospheric scene setting nestled in the northeastern corner of South Asia, where the great Himalayan rivers finally meet the Bay of Bengal, Bangladesh emerges from the waters like a dream. This is a land where the horizon shimmers with the silver of 1,000 rivers, where fishermen cast their nets at dawn while mist rises from the water like prayers ascending to the heavens, where the soil is so rich, so saturated with nutrients carried down from the mountains, that seeds seem to sprout almost before they touch the ground. From above, Bangladesh looks less like solid earth and more like a living watercolor painting. Rivers twist and braid and separate, creating islands that appear and disappear with the seasons. Villages cling to narrow strips of elevated land while rice paddies stretch in every direction, their emerald green so vivid it seems almost artificial. This is not merely a location on a map, it is a testament to human adaptability, a living laboratory of survival, and a reminder that the relationship between land and water is never truly settled. Here, children learn to swim before they learn to walk. Here, homes are built on stilts, and boats serve as buses, trucks, and ambulances. Here, the very concept of solid ground is a negotiation renewed with every passing tide. And yet, within this world of constant flux, a rich civilization has flourished for more than 4,000 years. Empires have risen and fallen. Poets have sung of love and loss. And ordinary people have found extraordinary ways to thrive in a landscape that seems designed to wash them away. Dhaka, the megacity that never sleeps. Welcome to Dhaka, the capital city that pulses with the heartbeat of 22 million people. One of the fastest growing megacities on the planet, Dhaka is not just a city. It is an organism, a phenomenon, a place where the future and the past collide in a symphony of sound, color, and ceaseless motion. Founded in the 7th century as a small trading post on the banks of the Baraganga River, Dhaka has transformed over the centuries into one of the most densely packed urban centers in human history. More than 47,000 people crowd into each square kilometer of this sprawling metropolis, a number that would seem suffocating if not for the remarkable energy that animates every street, every market, every chai stall. The old city, known locally as Puran Dhaka, still carries the echoes of Mughal grandeur. Narrow lanes wind between centuries-old buildings, their facades weathered by time but still standing proud. Not far from there stands the Lalbagh Fort, an unfinished 17th-century Mughal fortress whose construction was halted after the death of a princess. Legend holds that the fort is cursed, that every ruler who has tried to complete it has met with misfortune. True or not, the legend has protected Lalbagh from modern development, preserving its gardens and gateways as a green refuge in the heart of the concrete jungle. Yet Dhaka is not a city frozen in the past. It is a city racing toward the future with almost reckless abandon. Glass towers rise beside colonial-era buildings. Shopping malls stand in the shadows of ancient mosques. And everywhere, there are people. Working, selling, bargaining, dreaming, The garment industry, which employs more than 4 million workers, most of them women, has transformed Bangladesh into the second largest apparel exporter in the world. Behind the global brands and the fashion runways lies the labor of millions of Bangladeshi hands, stitching together not just fabric, but the economic future of a nation. And despite the traffic that can turn a 10-kilometer journey into a 3-hour odyssey, despite the pollution that hangs heavy in the air, despite the floods that periodically submerge entire neighborhoods, the people of Dhaka persist with a cheerfulness that borders on the miraculous. The Sundarbans, where tigers walk on water south of the urban chaos, where the rivers finally surrender to the sea, lies one of the most extraordinary ecosystems on Earth. The Sundarbans, a name that translates roughly to beautiful forest, stretches across 10,000 square kilometers of mangrove wilderness, making it the largest mangrove forest in the world. Shared between Bangladesh and India, this UNESCO World Heritage Site is not merely a forest. It is a labyrinth, a maze of tidal waterways, mudflats, and small islands covered with salt-tolerant trees whose tangled roots create a world unlike any other. Here, the land itself seems uncertain of its identity. At high tide, the forest appears to float on the water. At low tide, vast expanses of mud emerge, crisscrossed with the tracks of creatures that have learned to navigate between two worlds. And among those creatures is the most famous resident of the Sundarbans, the Royal Bengal tiger. Unlike their forest-dwelling cousins elsewhere in Asia, the tigers of the Sundarbans have adapted to a life of water. They swim between islands, sometimes covering distances of 8 kilometers or more. They hunt in the mangroves, preying on spotted deer, wild boar, and occasionally, tragically, the fishermen and honey collectors who venture into the forest to make their living. It is estimated that between 100 and 150 tigers still roam the Bangladesh portion of the Sundarbans, a population small enough to be precarious, yet large enough to maintain the species' vital role as apex predator in this delicate ecosystem. But the tigers are not the only wonder of the Sundarbans. The forest is home to more than 260 bird species, including the white-bellied sea eagle and the lesser adjutant stork. Saltwater crocodiles, some measuring more than 6 meters in length, patrol the waterways. Ganges river dolphins, one of the world's rarest freshwater cetaceans, surface briefly before disappearing back into the murky depths. For the approximately 4 million people who live in and around the Sundarbans, the forest is not a wilderness to be preserved at a distance. It is a source of livelihood. Fishermen harvest shrimp and crab. Honey collectors brave the tigers to gather the sweet golden nectar produced by giant honeybees. Woodcutters, despite increasingly strict regulations, still look to the forest for fuel and building materials. This human-nature relationship is fraught with danger. Every year, dozens of people are killed by tigers, crocodiles, or venomous snakes. And yet, the forest communities remain, bound to the mangroves by generations of tradition and economic necessity. Perhaps most importantly, the Sundarbans serve as Bangladesh's first line of defense against cyclones. The dense mangrove forests absorb the energy of storm surges, dramatically reducing the destruction that would otherwise devastate the low-lying coastal regions. Scientists estimate that the Sundarbans have saved countless lives and billions of dollars in property damage since records began. In a very real sense, the forest protects those who depend upon it. A reminder that in Bangladesh, the relationship between humans and nature is not one of domination, but of mutual survival. Follow the coast southward, past fishing villages and shrimp farms, and you will eventually arrive at a place that seems almost too vast to comprehend. Cox's Bazar, home to the longest natural sea beach on Earth, stretches for an unbroken 120 kilometers along the Bay of Bengal, named after a British officer, Captain Hiram Cox, who worked to resettle refugees in the area during the 18th century. Cox's Bazar has become Bangladesh's most popular tourist destination. Millions of domestic visitors flock here each year to walk the endless sands, watch the sun set over the water, and escape, if only briefly, the pressures of urban life. The beach itself is a wonder of nature, wide and gently sloping. The sand runs in an uninterrupted ribbon from the town of Cox's Bazar all the way to Teknaf at the southern tip of Bangladesh. During low tide, the beach can extend for hundreds of meters, creating a vast playground of sand and shallow water. Beyond the beach, the region offers a diversity of landscapes that surprises many first-time visitors. The hills of the Chittagong Hill Tracts rise in the distance, their slopes covered with bamboo forests and the scattered villages of indigenous communities. Offshore, St. Martin's Island, Bangladesh's only coral island, offers crystal-clear waters and a glimpse of tropical paradise. Yet Cox's Bazar is also a place where Bangladesh's challenges become starkly visible. The region hosts more than 900,000 Rohingya refugees who have fled persecution in neighboring Myanmar. The camps around Cox's Bazar constitute one of the largest refugee settlements in the world, a city of temporary shelters where families wait in uncertain hope for a future that remains unclear. The presence of so many refugees has strained local resources and created complex social dynamics. And yet, the people of Cox's Bazar have largely welcomed their neighbors with a generosity that reflects the broader Bangladeshi spirit of hospitality and compassion. To understand Bangladesh, you must understand its rivers. The Ganges, known locally as the Padma, the Brahmaputra, called the Jamuna, the Meghna, and hundreds of smaller waterways that branch and merge and change course with every passing year. These rivers are not mere geographic features. They are living entities that shape every aspect of Bangladeshi life. They bring the fertile silt that makes the delta one of the most productive agricultural regions on earth. They provide fish that constitute the primary source of protein for millions of people. They serve as highways, carrying goods and passengers to places where roads have never reached. But the rivers also take every year. Riverbank erosion displaces approximately 50,000 people. Entire villages vanish into the water as the river cuts new channels through the soft alluvial soil. Families that have lived in the same location for generations wake up one morning to find their homes collapsing into the current. The people who lose their land to the rivers are known as climate refugees. Though the phenomenon predates modern awareness of climate change by centuries, they migrate to Dhaka, to other cities, to wherever they can find work and shelter. Many end up in slums, starting over with nothing but the clothes on their backs. And yet, even here, there is a strange circularity to life in Bangladesh. Just as rivers destroy, they also create new islands, called chars, emerge from the water as sediment accumulates. These chars attract settlers, people willing to gamble on land that might disappear again in a decade or a century. Living on a char is an act of faith. The soil is fertile, often spectacularly so, producing bumper crops of vegetables and grain, but the land is also low, vulnerable to flooding, and legally ambiguous. Char dwellers exist in a gray zone, their homes unrecognized by formal systems, their futures dependent on the whims of water. An estimated 6 million Bangladeshis live on these river islands, creating communities that are among the most vulnerable on Earth. They have developed ingenious adaptations, floating gardens that rise and fall with floodwaters, raised platforms for storing grain and sheltering livestock, houses built on bamboo stilts that can be quickly disassembled and moved when the river changes course. This is resilience not as an abstract concept, but as a daily practice, a willingness to rebuild, to adapt, to accept uncertainty as the price of existence. Long before the rivers defined modern Bangladesh, this land cradled civilizations that left their marks in stone and memory. At Paharpur, in the northwestern corner of Bangladesh, the remains of the Somapura Mahavihara rise from the flat agricultural landscape like a monument to forgotten grandeur. Built in the 8th century during the Pala dynasty, this Buddhist monastery was once one of the largest of its kind in the world, covering more than 27 acres and housing hundreds of monks. The central temple, though now reduced to a grass-covered mound, once rose to a height of more than 30 meters. Its walls were decorated with terracotta plaques depicting scenes from Buddhist mythology, images of animals, and geometric patterns that still captivate visitors today. For scholars, Somapura Mahavihara represents evidence of a flourishing Buddhist civilization in Bengal that predated the arrival of Islam by centuries. It was a center of learning that attracted students from Tibet, China, and Southeast Asia, a place where philosophy and art intertwined in the pursuit of enlightenment. Today, the ruins are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, though they remain less visited than other famous Buddhist monuments. In the quiet of a Bengal afternoon, walking among the remaining walls and stupas, one can still sense the spiritual energy that once animated this place. Farther south, in the region known as Bagerhat, another UNESCO site tells a different story. The historic mosque city, built by Khan Jahan Ali in the 15th century, represents the arrival of Islam in Bengal and the beginning of a new cultural chapter. Khan Jahan Ali, a Turkish general who became a Sufi saint, transformed what was then dense jungle into a thriving city. He built roads, dug tanks for fresh water, and constructed more than 50 mosques, including the magnificent Sheikh Gumbad Mosque, whose 77 domes remain intact to this day. The architecture of Bagerhat reflects the unique synthesis that would come to define Bengali Islam. Rather than imposing foreign styles wholesale, the builders adapted Islamic forms to local materials and traditions. The result is a distinctly Bengali aesthetic, one that continues to influence architecture and design throughout the region. For centuries, the textiles of Bengal were legendary throughout the known world. Muslin, so fine, it was called woven air. Cotton, so delicate that an entire sari could pass through a wedding ring. These fabrics were prized in the courts of Rome, Baghdad, and Beijing. They were traded along the Silk Road and the spice routes. They made Bengal one of the wealthiest regions on earth. The most famous of these textiles was Dhaka muslin, named after the capital city where the finest weavers practiced. This transformation has come with significant challenges. Working conditions in garment factories have drawn international scrutiny. The Rana Plaza collapse of 2013, which killed more than 1,100 workers, shocked the world and sparked renewed calls for reform. Progress has been made, though much remains to be done. And alongside the industrial giants, traditional crafts survived. In villages throughout Bangladesh, weavers still produce jamdani, a handloom fabric with patterns woven directly into the cloth rather than printed or embroidered. Recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage, Jamdani requires months to produce a single piece, each one unique, each one carrying forward techniques developed centuries ago. To understand a people, one must understand what they eat. And the cuisine of Bangladesh is as rich, as varied, and as deeply meaningful as any aspect of its culture. Rice is the foundation. Served at every meal, in countless varieties. Rice is so central to Bangladeshi life that the word for eating is inseparable from the word for rice. To eat is to eat rice. Everything else is accompaniment. Fish comes next. In a country crossed by rivers and bordered by sea, fish provides the primary protein for most of the population. The national dish, hilsa, a type of shad prized for its rich, oily flesh, is so beloved that it has inspired poetry, song, and diplomatic incident. During the monsoon season, when hilsa is at its fattest and most flavorful, prices soar, and families celebrate with elaborate meals. Beyond rice and fish, Bengali cuisine showcases a remarkable diversity of vegetables, lentils, and spices. Mustard oil, with its pungent aroma and distinctive taste, forms the base of many dishes. Panchforan, a blend of 5 whole spices, adds complexity without overwhelming heat. And sweets. Oh, the sweets deserve special mention. Bengali desserts are legendary throughout South Asia. Rosagala, spongy balls of cheese soaked in sugar syrup. Sandesh, a delicate confection made from fresh cheese and flavored with cardamom or saffron. Mishti doi, a caramelized yogurt that balances sweetness with subtle temps. These desserts are not merely food. They are expressions of love, offered at weddings, festivals, and whenever hospitality demands something special. Return now to the coast, where the existential challenge of rising seas becomes most visible. Climate scientists have identified Bangladesh as one of the countries most vulnerable to global warming. The combination of low elevation, high population density, and dependence on agriculture creates a perfect storm of risk. Sea levels in the Bay of Bengal are rising at approximately 3 millimeters per year. That may sound insignificant until you realize that much of coastal Bangladesh lies less than 10 meters above sea level. A rise of just 1 meter, well within projections for the end of this century, would inundate approximately 17% of the country's land area. But the threat goes beyond simple submersion. As seawater intrudes into freshwater aquifers and agricultural land, salinity increases, making farming impossible and drinking water unsafe. Already, millions of coastal residents have been forced to abandon their traditional livelihoods and migrate inland. The response to these challenges has been remarkable. Bangladesh has become a global leader in climate adaptation, developing innovative solutions that other nations are now seeking to replicate. Floating schools allow education to continue during flood season. Floating gardens provide food security when fields are underwater. Cyclone shelters, built on elevated platforms throughout the coastal zone, have dramatically reduced deaths from tropical storms. The death toll from Cyclone Sidyair in 2007, though tragic, was a fraction of what it would have been just decades earlier, thanks to improved warning systems and infrastructure. And yet, adaptation has its limits. No amount of innovation can fully compensate for the loss of land and livelihood that climate change will bring. Bangladesh contributes less than 0.35% of global greenhouse gas emissions, yet its people will bear a disproportionate share of the consequences. This is the cruel mathematics of climate injustice. Those least responsible suffer most. What is it that makes Bangladeshis so resilient? How does a people faced with such overwhelming challenges maintain not just their determination, but their joy? Part of the answer lies in community. In Bangladesh, no one faces disaster alone. Extended family networks, village associations, and informal support systems provide safety nets that formal institutions cannot match. When floods come, neighbors help neighbors. When homes are lost, relatives open their doors. When there is not enough, people share what little they have. Part of the answer lies in faith. Bangladesh is a predominantly Muslim country, and the Islamic concepts of patience, acceptance, and trust in divine wisdom provide a framework for understanding suffering. Whatever happens is written, believers say. This is not fatalism but a kind of spiritual resilience, a refusal to be destroyed by circumstances beyond human control. And part of the answer lies in the land itself. The same rivers that bring destruction also bring renewal. The same floods that wash away crops also deposit fresh nutrients that make the next harvest possible. Bangladeshis have learned, over centuries, that destruction is not the end. It is simply a pause before rebuilding begins. This cyclical understanding of time, this acceptance that loss and gain are inseparable, shapes the Bangladeshi worldview in profound ways. It allows people to grieve without despair. It encourages innovation without recklessness. It creates a culture that values persistence over perfection. In the end, the future of Bangladesh belongs to its children, and there are many of them. Despite declining birth rates, approximately 48 million Bangladeshis are under the age of 18. Their lives will unfold in a world shaped by challenges their grandparents could never have imagined. Education offers the brightest hope. Literacy rates have climbed dramatically in recent decades, particularly among girls. Bangladesh has achieved something rare in the developing world: gender parity in primary and secondary education. More girls now complete school than boys, a transformation that carries profound implications for the future. Educated women have fewer children. They participate more fully in the economy. They raise healthier families. The education of girls is not just a matter of individual opportunity. It is a national survival strategy, a way of building human capital, as physical capital becomes increasingly precarious. Technology offers another avenue of hope. Bangladesh has embraced mobile phones and digital connectivity with remarkable enthusiasm. Financial services reach villages where banks have never established branches. Information flows through networks that bypass traditional gatekeepers. Young entrepreneurs launch startups that compete in global markets. These developments do not guarantee a bright future, but they provide the tools with which a bright future might be built. Our journey through Bangladesh reveals a nation that defies simple characterization. It is a country of contradictions, where ancient traditions coexist with modern ambitions, where terrible challenges inspire remarkable solutions, where the line between land and water remains forever blurred. The world has much to learn from Bangladesh, not despite its vulnerabilities, but because of them. In an age of climate change and mass migration, the Bangladeshi experience offers a preview of challenges that many other nations will eventually face. And in the Bangladeshi response, we see possibilities for adaptation, community, and resilience that transcend borders and cultures. This is a country that should not work, a country built on sinking land, threatened by rising seas, packed with more people than the infrastructure can reasonably support, and yet it does work. Not perfectly, not easily, but with a stubborn determination that inspires admiration. 170 million people wake up each morning in a country that might be underwater in a century, and they go to work. They send their children to school. They plant crops and catch fish and weave fabric. They laugh and argue and dream of better days. This is Bangladesh, a drowning nation that refuses to sink. A people who have learned that survival is not about avoiding disaster, but about rising again after disaster strikes. If you found this journey meaningful, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Travel Vibes. Leave us a comment sharing your thoughts about Bangladesh and the remarkable resilience of its people. Thank you for traveling with us. We will see you on the next adventure.